I'm going to talk about scouts for a while. International scouts, that is. IHC or IHS. IHS is an international scout. There are certain kinds of IHs. International Harvester is what IH stands for, and IH is American made. Scouts are beasts. They do what you want, when you want, how you want, wherever you want. They go up the side of hills, 50 miles an hour, 10, 90 if you want. They go up paved highways as fast as you want, up to 120. And they'll take you anywhere. And I'm not kidding. Anywhere. And there's a story about me and my friend. We're driving along one day in dirt road, and we said, look at that neat looking pond over there. Except one thing. You can't walk because it's too dangerous. There were some poison bushes and there were some beehives out there. So we just took across that field in the Scout, crashing through barbed wire fences, running over beehives, and we got to the lake. And that, well, not a lake, but a pond. And that pond, we couldn't stop. We had a slide. We slid right into it. But it was great. You know, Scouts, I mean, you can do anything in the Scouts. We got stuck. So, you know, we just about got out. But then we realized one thing. It wasn't in four-wheel drive. And that really freaked us out. I mean, what would you do if you were going through a field that was 8 foot deep mud and you didn't know what you were doing and you didn't know where you were going, and all of a sudden, burloop, you're in a mud hole. You floor it and you get out, and you find out you didn't even use four-wheel drive. That would be beastly. Like that, only Scouts could do that. That's why International stands for America. International is great. It's just great. There's nothing you can do about it. International will always rule. And in my book, International is killer. Now, one time, we're driving around this lake, and we seen this rabbit. Excuse me. See, that rabbit was so big it made me cough. So we said, let's take off after it. We were driving, and we seen these 2 irrigation ditches. But of course, you know, the Scout just right through them, no sweat at all. And we kept on chasing that rabbit. And all of a sudden we came up to a stream. There was no road near it, so we just drove up the stream. And then the rabbit ran up a tree, so we followed it right up that tree. Rabbit ran down a cliff, we followed it right down that cliff. Rabbit went through the lake, we followed it through the lake, etc., etc., etc. Through a cornfield too, off cliffs, you name it. But we caught the rabbit. Finally, we got the rabbit to go on a paved road. As soon as it got on there, we ran it over. And believe me, we were out in the middle of the wilderness, and we would have died if it wasn't for our Scout. Now, that proves about Scouts. Scouts are great. We were driving down the lake once, and we decided to go fishing. We saw this real neat fishing hole, except we had to go over a big hill to get to it. And believe me, the hill was big. It was big, real big, and real tall. Now that hill, we never been up a hill half the size. So we said, what the heck? Fishing's worth it. So we tried it. and we saw 3 Jeeps that were trying to get up. They had gigantic tires. These Jeeps, they were all spinning. They got only halfway up the hill, and they were spinning like mad. And the hill was covered with mud. One Jeep couldn't even start to get up. So we said, "Step back, boys, we'll show you how it's done." And we put it in 4-wheel high, and right up the top of that hill. And we said, "We get the good fishing hole, you don't, because you don't have a Scout. That's why you need a beast. I mean, Scouts are killer. There's nothing you can do about it. You need a Scout to get anywhere." I mean, these little Toyota pickups, they get stuck in little snow every once in a while. Dirt road, Toyota pickup backs into a 1-inch deep ditch, gets stuck. I mean, Jeeps aren't too bad, but Jeeps aren't beastly. Scouts are beastly. Now, Scouts are great. Now, Scouts have always won races against Jeeps. Always. I mean, I was watching the ice races, and this Scout was heavy. It was real heavy. It weighed 2.5 tons. I mean, it was 5,000 pounds, this Scout. I mean, it was just pure beast. Just pure man-made beast. American man-made beast it was. An American man-made beast. You needed an American man to drive that thing, because any Chinaman could not drive it. And that's the American man. I mean, he was a big guy. He was a berserker. Giant guy. He got in that Scout and said, "Whoa, Scouty, now you listen to me. When I push your gas pedal down, you're gonna go fast." And believe me, he was against the killer Jeep of them all, the best Jeep in the world, matter of fact. This Scout wasn't even the best Scout in the world, Average Scout, just, pretty heavy, because it had metal in the back to make it heavy, so it can get traction. And when that guy hopped in, he said, "Scout, you're gonna go everywhere." So that guy took off like a bat out of hell. That Scout, ooh boy, did he ever whip that Jeep. In fact, the Scout was driving around, and the Scout did make a mistake. It drove off the course. This little Toyota was in the way, but guess what? The Scout went right over the top of the Toyota. I mean, I was there, and it was great. Just crunch. And believe me, that Toyota looked like a fossil. I mean, everybody should have been there. I mean, that proves beast over junk. Now, you want to hear something real amazing? This time, this guy was in a Scout, driving down a highway, normal, a highway with traffic lights. And what did he see? One heck of a traffic jam. And one great thing about it was every car in that traffic jam was foreign. That Scout, the guy in the Scout got real mad. So what did he do? He pushed all the 12 cars off the road, drove over the top of 3 more, and kept going. Now, Scouts are always beasts. That's why I was telling you them stories. And I know that you like this, because if you're a Scout lunatic, fanatic, whatever, you will like this. Excuse me there. Just that I had to cough because I saw a scout outside my window. And that scout ran over a little car out there. And that little car, well, put it this way. I could probably put it in my frying pan tomorrow morning and cook it up. That's what I mean. I mean, scouts are pure evil. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, I myself have a great incident. I was testing out top speed in my Scout one night, going real fast, 115, on a road called Rocky Hills. Now, it was a dirt road, but it was smooth, so I was going 115, and that is fast. Now, scouts don't need to go fast because they can do what they want. I mean, if cops chase after them, they run them off the road. So, I was driving. I whip over the top of this hill, and I hear this big two crunches. Two gigantically loud crunches. So I slam on the brakes, and that scout turns sideways, and the scout spins around 4 times without rolling. Imagine that. Scouts do not roll. A Corvette will roll before a scout. Now, one thing. I looked back, and what did I see? A red thing with 2 black lines on it. Now, I couldn't tell what it was because I was 250 feet away. But it was a red thing. I was far away. It looked like a red thing with 2 big black lines going across it. And the lines were about as big as the wheelbase on my Scout. And I went back, and I found out that I had run over a Ferrari. That guy got out there, and he was saying every word that wasn't in Webster's book. Every word that was not in Webster's book at all. And finally, he got done, and what did I say? I said, well, look-a-here. This is a little scratch in my bumper. I'm going to have to kill you for this. So I took out my shotgun and said, well, you either stand in the middle of the road and see if I can straddle you with my Scout, or I'll shoot you with this. And believe me, looking down the barrel of a 4-gauge isn't nice. It's evil. So he stood out in the middle. I flew past his Ferrari about 110, went right over him. Didn't hit him. Did not. That guy was lucky. So the next day, I had a call from him. And he said, I'm going to sue you for $50,000 for running over my Ferrari. So what did I say? Fine, be that way, be a poop, you know. Be a clock, be a timepiece, be a jerk. Be anything you want that's stupid. Because all I will do is seek revenge. I don't like people who have to sue to get the other person back. I mean, that's being a pansy. You just want to get a Scout and get them back with a Scout. The Scout is the ideal revenge. So, what do? I get my Scout out, the Black Beast, one midnight, Friday midnight, and what do? I go to the guy's house that I ran over Ferrari. And boy, guess what? That guy is rich. That guy has a Lotus. He has a Corvette. He has a Trans Am. He has another Ferrari. He has 2 Porsches. And he has a Lamborghini. And 3 of them are in the garage. 4 of them, or how many others are left, are outside. So what do? Run them over. And I don't stop. And I was kind of worried about the ones in the garage because when I see a flock of birds, I don't like to leave one let go. I like to get them all. That's why I carry around my 4 gauge. So in other words, what I'm saying is I wanted to get all of his vehicles. So what I did was rammed through his garage. And as soon as I rammed through his garage, he was standing right there. And he said, "What are you going to do?" And he standing between his 2 cars and with one behind him. So what did I say? Go ahead, make my day. And I floored it. I ran right over the top of his Ferrari and his Porsche and his Lotus, and his Corvette was already dead. But he lucked out because he was between them, and I straddled him. So the next day, he calls me up and he says he's going to sue for $350,000. So what do I say? Fine, be a poop, be that way. So one day I was out up in the mountains at this lake, real shallow lake, shallowest lake I've ever been to. It's about 12 feet deep. So I see him out there in his yacht. I mean, that is the shallowest lake you can use for a yacht. I see him in his yacht. He's just coming up to the boat dock. So I get in my black beast and I punch it. And I hit that boat dock at 63 miles an hour. And I jump off the dock right through his yacht, keep floating until I get to this island, get on the island, go down in the water, come out the other side of the lake, and take off. And that guy next day, you wouldn't believe, next day, I mean, the next day he sent me a sue bill, a lawsuit bill for $495,000. So what I said to him was, well, my game is yours. You keep playing the game I keep playing, because I can do it as long as you want to. Because nobody can stop a scout. I mean, nobody. Not even a Terex Titan truck. So what does he do? He buys a Terex Titan truck. So next day, I'm driving down the highway in my Scout, doing about 75, and all of a sudden I see this big old truck, and it's on the wrong side of the road. And you know who I thought it was? I thought it was my friend, because my friend Rob is real crazy. He drives an international truck. It's gigantic, but it wasn't. It was not an international. If it was, I would have been dead. Not that 3-aught either, but that too even. But it was that guy. There's all these people clearing off the road because of that truck. And I said, I'm not clearing off the road because of that piece of junk. So I punched it. And boy, that truck was so big I went over the top of it. So I whipped a cookie quick in the middle of the pavement, did not even get close to roll it, just on one wheel. And boy, it didn't scare me at all. So I whipped around, floored it again, and I popped a wheelie. I was riding a wheelie, and boy, I rode a wheelie. That truck had a big old shovel-like thing on the front of it. I hit that shovel, bounced up, drove right through the truck's engine, right through the back. The dumper fell completely off. I ran it over. The dumper flattened out into a big piece of sheet metal, and I kept going. And that guy, I've never seen a grown man cry that much. I mean, that just proves how scouts are killer. So finally, the next day, this guy must be real dumb, The next day, that guy has a scout. And you know what? He challenged me to a duel. And I said, well, this is life. Might as well face up to it. So I accepted. And when I raced him in the mud, and at the end he rammed me. We were going through mud, I mean, it was easy and everything. Probably easy enough for a Toyota to do. And at the end, he rammed me. So I tried to ram him, and I drove right over the top of him. And I don't no excuses. Do you know what the excuse was? No excuses. Yes, I'm a scout. You're a Volkswagen. I'll have excuses. Scouts have the right of way. So I found out that scout was a replica scout made in Taiwan. The next day, I was driving in my scout, and boy did I realize that guy was coming up behind me in another scout. It looked like a scout at least. But for 3 seconds, I just looked back for 3 seconds, and I noticed that it was not a scout. It was a travel-law. I mean, that means it travels in all places. Well, this time, he drove up next to me, and I found out that it wasn't him. He took off this mask, and it was my best friend. And that's how it was. I found out the guy killed himself of trying too hard. He died trying too hard. I mean, you try too hard against a scout, you'll really push your luck and you'll kill yourself. That's what you get for picking on scouts. Because you ruin your day by trying to do something to a scout. Scout will always turn around and do it right back. So that guy died of fright of scouts. But my friend, me, we took off up in the mountains, made the mountains a little shorter with our shotguns, and that was the greatest day of our lives, talking about that guy and how much of a fool he made out of himself. And you know what? That guy promised me if he ever died, he'd leave me the money. He sued me for $480,000. He got the money, but he had to give it back. So I was rich. Now I own 643 scouts. Every kind, every shape, every year. Me and my friend Rob lived happily ever after. Fixing scouts, even they don't need to be fixed, fixing them up. You don't fix scouts. Scouts fix themselves. So that's what the story was about. Me and my friend living with scouts. I mean, we had 8 dogs. All of them were named Scout. One was named Travelall because he was a big black dog. And we had a big black Travelall. And that's what it was, We just lived with those vehicles. And those vehicles really made our lives. And that's why I'm telling you, you need a scout. Because scouts, they do whatever you want. And that's why scouts are the best vehicles in the world. Most powerful, most aggressive. I mean, they're just great, There's no other way to put it. They're excellent. They do whatever you want. That's why everybody must own one. Well, I just pull onto the highway in my little foreign car while it's raining and the road is really bad. Never saw that big old scout, but I heard him hit the air. I have a feeling that I might have made him mad. He closed the gap between us, pushed the pedal on the floor. He's making 155 in that big old Scout. I can hear the names is calling me above the engine's growl, and the words won't be found in any book. There's a Scouty on my tail making 155. My reflection in my mirror's mighty broken. I can hear St. Peter calling. I can almost smell the oatmeal. Can this compact take the impact? There's a Scouty on my butt. So, that's the end of the Scout story. That's the Scouts theme song. And Scouts are beasts. God dang, that was a great Scout that just drove over the top of my house. I liked it. I think I'm going to have to confiscate it from my best friend tomorrow. Now, like I say, that was a tale of the Scout. Now, Scouts are just great. Scouts are the best weapon of all time. It's the best, evilest, greatest, most excellent, most powerful, beastliest evilness thing you can ever get. Thing most revengeful in the whole world. Works so good for revenge. And yet it makes a lot of friends too. So, that's the end. I guess I hope you turn into a real smart person and buy a Scout. Because Scouts only cost as much terrain as you can afford to rip up with your tires. All you have to do is pay the dealer for land, and you can rip up any terrain you want. Now, this dealer has to be a land dealer too, because if he's not, you can't buy a Scout. Best recommendations is Rob and Ed Griffith, and they are the ones that deal with Scouts. Like I say, they own 643 Scouts right now. Well, Ed does. Rob owns 618 also by himself, not counting the travel-alls. Whoa, excellent. I've never seen that happen before. This Scout was driving in midair. I don't know how. Oh, it was a special floating edition. Okay. What? Oh. My friend here says that floating editions started in 1964 and they ended in 1981. Well, now that they're not making Scouts anymore, they're going to be real hard to find because I own. Most Scouts have driven themselves up in the mountains, and most Scouts live in caves now. That's why there's nobody in the world owns a Scout except for me and Rob. Me and Rob are best friends, and we're the only ones in the whole world that owns Scouts. I own 643, he owns 618, and we own travel-alls too, not to count about 500 travel-alls put together. Believe me, travel-alls are good too. They carry. I've heard the tale of a travel-all where this guy had 8 tons of cement, and he had to get it to his house in exactly 15 minutes. There was no truck around that could do it. So he went to a dealer, seen this travel-all. It was $150 to buy it. And he said, this guy was kind of rich. He said, I'll take this thing. And he said, I'll have to do this 1 ton by 1 ton, just 1 ton at a time. So he was going back to where all the cement was, the site of his cement. And he hears this big old voice. Travel all their beasts. Spare the cement. You can carry it all. It was the Travelall God. Now, you might not believe in gods, but this was real. Travelall God always tells you what Travelalls can do. So that guy, bit by bit, loaded all the cement in his Travelall, took off, made it home, and came back. By the time he came back to get all of his shovels and picks, because there was no room for it, he found out that his Travelall was brand new. Don't ask me how, but that's just the way it is. So Travelalls are great too. I just hope you get a Scout or a Travelall, maybe even an international pickup. Now let's talk about engines. 392s come in Travelalls and pickups. 345s come in most Scouts, or 304s, or maybe even small engines. But Scouts don't need big engines. It's just the beast within itself. The biggest engine made is a 549. And goodbye, folks. That's all the time I have. I'll have to just buy a Scout. That's all I have to say. You better. You better buy an International. International stands for America. It is number one. It's better than any other vehicle in the USA. Not only that, but it's the best in the universe. So please buy an International for your own sake. It's the only way to live. I'm in here, Terry. Don't worry, it's not a recording. I'm really in here. Doesn't it really sound like me? Just come on in. Actually, I'm not here. That's why I'm recording this voice here. But I'll be here in a minute, okay? So just wait here in my room. Hey. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, Debbie. 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 What's the matter with you? Hey. What's the matter with you? Toilet zone.